Not that one. Yeah, maybe this one. Just going to scale it up a bit, rotate it around slightly. And on this one, I'm more concerned with the black part of the texture, so I'm going to paint that in. I'm going to bake it down. And I'm just going to fix up these two corners here as well. Again, because these are dirt textures, you're really not going to notice them. I will fix up that there as well though in just a sec. You're not really going to notice this stretching happening, but we might as well fix it because we see it. I'm going to jump back to the lower layer, which is this top white part that we were painting in. And grab no, I think it might have been this one here, and just paint that in as well, because you will see the sides of these supports. We'll bake that down. Jump around to this side, and again we'll just fix that stretching that's happening here up a bit. Because we have our layer style still set to add, we can see what it's going to look like as we paint it in. Okay, we'll bake that down. Now I'm going to jump back to the layer at the bottom we were working on here. Move that out of the way. And again, the bottom, I'm just going to fix that up as well. I'm just going to paint that out with black. All right. So we're going to change our layer style probably to a multiply here. And again, I'm going to pull it back. All right. So we know our second version here is starting at layer 14 and working up. We're going to throw down another layer. And grab another texture. And not that one. This one might be interesting. Again, I'm angling the model so it's flat in the middle because it's curved on an angle. So we want to make sure that we hit the middle of it. Just going to scale that up a bit. Rotate it around to make sure I'm following the direction of the model. I'm going to paint that in. And bake it down. Just going to move that up to the side for a minute. Let's go with a multiply on this one. I hit the wrong section, so I'm going to scrap that. I'm going to remove this layer completely. Again, that's why working with these layers is really handy. I'm going to throw down another layer again. No, I know it's okay. I'm going to scale that down a bit. Maybe a bit more. I'm not completely sold whether I'm going to use this texture or not, but it's interesting looking, so I'm just playing around with it to see if I can come up with anything that looks cool. Again, I'm going to bake it down with the Alt key. Before I do any more work though, I'm going to change the layer style and have a look at it. Yeah, no, it's not really doing what I was hoping it would do. So again, I'm going to remove that layer. Throw down a new layer and grab a new texture. I just like the look of the texture. I thought it might have been cool if we could have incorporated it, but it's not going to work. So not everything's a win. Let's see what this one's like. No. 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 I'm just looking for an interesting looking texture I can use as a dirt map, an overall dirt map. This one might work. Again, I'm just going to angle my model slightly here. Again, I've got masking turned off. Just going to scale that up till it fits the covers the entire model, and I'm going to paint that in. And bake it down. I'll rotate my model around and do this side as well. And again, I'm only worrying about blending the two textures together. I don't really, and because it's going to be used as a dirt map, it's going to be pretty subtle anyway. Okay, let's bake that down. All right. And let's just fix up a couple of these spots in here. All right, let's move the texture out of the way and change our layer style here. Let's try a darken first. Now let's try multiply. Lighten. Screen. Let's pull it back a bit and look at the difference. That might work for us. Let's export this. I want to bring it into Max and check it on the model. So I'm going to export everything flattened. We've got support redone. We called it 2 because we saved one out from Photoshop, and now I'm going to do underscore R2 for revision 2 for a second version. Oh, that's because I didn't give it a file extension. That's why it complained. So support redone 2 underscore R2 dot TGA. You've actually got to specify in Mari what file format you want to save as. It's not like Photoshop, say, where you have a drop down to select the file that you want, whether it's JPEG or PNG or Target. You've actually got to type it in and tell it. Let's jump back into Max and jump into our material editor. And again, I work horizontally when I'm creating a new texture, and then vertically when I'm doing variations on the same texture. So we're going to throw down a standard map and a bitmap. And jump into our rework folder. And it's support 2_R2. That's the one we just exported. I'm going to pipe that into the diffuse channel and turn on show shaded and show realistic. Otherwise we won't see it when we assign it to the model. Now I'm just going to close that down and jump into isolation mode. At the moment this is one group. I'm going to ungroup it. And attach it. I'm going to convert it to a poly, so it's always better to work in edit poly as opposed to edit mesh. We're just going to attach these three pieces together. We'll exit isolation mode. Now to get it ready, I'm going to select our original mesh here, go into our utilities tab and open up our channel info, and copy the UVWs from map channel 1. I'm going to select the second object here that we just attached and paste the UVs into there. Now when we open up our material editor, we can select the second version and assign it to the object. So now we have two unique looking textures that can form part of what we use when we start repeating it around the outside, but we're going to have to do a couple more variations than just two. Like I said, we're probably going to have to do 1, 2, 3, 4, probably 5, so another 4 versions. So let's jump back into Murray. And we know from layer 12, from layer 14 up is our second version, so you can rename your layers if you like. It's up to you. If you think you might have to come back at a later date to redo something on the texture, it might be a good idea. What I'm going to do is turn off all those layers again. So we're back to our standard grey. Throw on a new layer, so I know from layer 18 now it's going to be the next version. Let's grab this texture. We'll scale our model up, and again we're going to angle it so we're looking at the flat part in the middle here. And we're going to rotate our texture and scale it up so it just fits the model. And I know last time I painted it in here, so I'm going to move this texture over this time to this edge to give it a bit of a different look. We're on a new layer, so let's paint that in. I'm going to bake that down. Now we're going to turn, go into our projection tab and turn masking back on. Just going to angle my model here, like that. Rotate my texture slightly, and paint that in. Like I said, because we have our masking turned on, we're not going to overpaint the front by mistake. But do remember the masking is camera view dependent, so I'll break that down. So depending on the angle that you the angle of the camera here will depend on how much masking or how little is being used. Again, I'm just going to rotate my model around like that. Rotate my texture back around to match the model. Get these small pieces here in the middle. We probably will have to jump into the UV viewport, I imagine, to fix up a couple of small areas we can't see here with the painting. We'll bake that down. It looks like there's a couple of spots up in here. I may be able to get those here though, so I'm just going to angle our model around a bit. Okay, we'll bake that down. I could have got them in the UV map, but it's probably just as easy for me to grab them while I'm here in 3D viewport. Okay, there is some stretching happening here, but I'll do those in the UV viewport. So let's do the top section here. Paint that in. Okay, we'll bake that down. Now I think we only have the back part here to do. Again, I'm always making sure to rotate my texture to match the angle of the model. You don't want to paint the texture off at an angle. It'll just end up looking a bit odd. Once we have our second version of the underlying texture here, then we can start just throwing on some more dirt maps on the top of it to make it look a bit more different. Working with two different texture map versions as well will help us to create a bit more variety. Let's bake that down. Okay, let's turn off masking. We'll zoom out a little bit. Okay, so let's start adding some dirt to this texture, this third version of the texture. So we'll throw down a new layer and we'll jump back into the image manager and find a dirt pattern we can throw on the top. Let's see what this one looks like. This one will probably work. Again, the larger part is at the top, sitting underneath of the banister, so we will I'll scale. Well, I don't want to rotate it. I want to scale it up a little bit. I'm going to scale up my model as well. Let's start with the front first. So we'll look directly onto the model. I'll just move my texture into place, rotate it around to follow the direction of the model. We'll paint that in. And again, we're worrying more about the white part of the texture on this one, not the black. So press the Alt key to back it down. Rotate our model around and paint out that stretching that's happening there. We'll bake it down. I'm also going to angle the model slightly up so I don't overpaint the top, because I don't have masking turned on. We'll paint that in. And again, the stretching that I'm painting over, it probably wouldn't really be necessary, because once we change the layer style, you're not going to notice it, but we will paint it out just to be on the safe side. Again, I'm going to bake it down. And I just don't like the look of those two white marks there. Again, probably not noticeable once it's the layer style has changed, but we may as well paint them out. Bake that down. I'm also going to paint a bit more white in through the front here, so just going to move my texture down a bit. Okay, and we'll bake it down. Let's move our texture out of the way and change our layer style to an add, and we'll pull it right back. Let's throw down a new layer and grab a new texture. This one will probably work. Again, let's look front onto the model, zoom in a bit so we can see this bottom part. And I'm also going to rotate the texture 180 degrees, because this one I'm more interested in the black as opposed to the white. So I'm only going to paint up and up to until I hit the white, and then I'm going to not go any higher. Bake that down. And we'll just fix these two corners up here. That one. And the one on this side. Okay, we'll bake that down. And I'm also just going to paint black here on where it's showing off a bit of white. Okay, we'll bake that down. Let's move our texture out of the way and change our layer style to a multiply, or an add, or a darken, sorry. Might go with a darken for this one, I think. And we're just going to pull it back a bit. Alright. Let's throw down one more layer. Just going to move my model into view here. And let's throw down a general dirt layer this time. So, what would be good? This one will probably work. Just going to rotate it, scale it up. We're on a new layer. I'm just going to paint that in completely all over the model. Hey Galen, how's things? Oh, that's cool. How's the displacement testing going? I'll bake that down. Yeah, I'll take a look right now. Hang on. Let's have a look. So you're doing displacement mapping, yeah? Just waiting for it to open up in a larger view. Cool. So the displacement are all of these metallic tiles, yeah? UV's a bit off. You mean just in areas like here? Yeah, well, no, it's important to do testing. I mean, you're not going to get things right the first time, so yeah, I can see just through here, perhaps. But the displacement looks like it's working quite well. Cool. I like your support here. That's looking really good. Lots of detail in it. Looking very nice, dude. Yeah, no, it looks great. Once the texture is texture mapped up, it'll look quite good. Displacement really does help, doesn't it? Without having to model in all the geometry. It's a good way to go. Looking cool. Just going to bake that down. Super subdivided. So you probably won't go the displacement route. You're worrying about the model being too high poly. Bake that down. Depends on what you want to use it for. I mean, if you're using it just to do renders and stuff, it probably won't make a difference unless it's chugging your machine. Maybe you could get away with using a normal map instead of a displacement map. Or do the displacement high poly and then bake that down into a normal map. Oh, 2 million birds there. Well, like I said, a normal map probably would work well as well. Because the geometry is so flat anyway, I think you'd probably get away with using a normal map. Normal maps are really, yeah, you've only got to be careful with normal maps if, on the silhouette of an object if it has, generally it's a silhouette of the object, so, because it only gives the illusion of 3D depth, a normal map, because of the lighting direction. So, depending on the silhouette of the model. But yeah, a normal map would probably be fine. That's looking good. Looks like you've got a lot of the body of the craft done as well, which is good. All right, let's move that out of the way for a moment. Oh, let me just do that bottom corner there as well. Okay, we'll break that down. Scale back a bit. Let's move my texture out of the way and let's play with our layer styles here. Just going to pull it in just a bit. Just to give a bit of a variation, a bit of a dirt look to it. And I'm also going to throw on one more layer. Grab a different texture map. Blender has a new feature that has dynamic subdivision. That's really cool, actually. Yeah, if it has that feature where it areas closer to the camera get subdivided more than things further away, that's really handy, really useful. I know Vue does that as well now. It has a function because of its instancing of all of the vegetation. You can set it up where it only shows, it'll only draw in the vegetation in front of the camera, and when you move the camera, it draws the vegetation in and removes it from other parts. So yeah, it's a really good feature to have. It's great that Blender has that. So we've got a new layer here. I'm just looking for another interesting looking texture. Of course, you've got to try out all the new things. That's the fun of 3D. All the new things that they add to software, for sure. This one might work. I'm just going to change my brush here and I'm going to make it a little larger. Again, I'm working on a new layer. I'm just going to paint in a little bit, bake it down. And I'm just going to move that out of the way for a minute. I want to change my layer style here before I do anything else. Okay. You think your subdivisions were too dense to begin with? Possibly. All right. Let's just start painting a bit of dirt marks here and there in this. Dents, yep. I get what you mean. Let's also throw a bit up here on the top. Well, that's a good idea to do a couple of tests with different starting points. Because like I said, even if you do sections and then do a normal map from a high to a poly to a low poly version, that'll give you a nice result. Even if you can't use the whole thing at once, you know what I mean? You do a section and then in high poly subdivided. So you do your high poly version of that, then you do a low poly version and bake the two together. Get your 3D software to render out the normal map. If you don't just want to do it via a texture map that is. All right, let's export this into and bring it into Max and have a look at it. So I'm going to export flattened. Oh, before I do that, I've just noticed we have that problem down here with the UVs, so I'm going to fix that up now. It's these ones here. So let's grab our texture map, scale it up so it matches the underlying texture map. And I'm also going to bring my brush down again. Oh, I'm in the wrong layer as well, so that would help. Let's jump down here. We'll bake that down. No problem. Thanks for popping into chat and saying hi. Good luck with the render. Okay, we'll bake that down. Let's jump back into our 3D view. Okay, that fixed that problem up. Although it looks like there might be a problem there. I'm just going to jump quickly back into the UV viewport. It's over here. Okay, we'll bake that down. Back to 3D. Back to UV. Okay, let's export the texture map and have a look at it in Max.